This is International Master Eric Kislik, and today we have some pretty big news from the Candidates Tournament. Vladimir Kramnik had arguably his toughest opponent with black, and he won against Aronian, who played e4. So this game is very, very interesting. Kramnik played an idea that a lot of people thought was a novelty, but actually, as I noticed, it's been played in correspondence 5 times before. We'll see on move 7, but it is a fantastic novelty. It really puts this entire line that Aronian played to shame. So let's take a look at the game. The game went e4, e5, knight f3, knight c6, bishop b5, knight f6. So this is frequently called the Berlin defense. Normally white castles here, and Kramnik played this with much success against Garry Kasparov in his World Championship match in 2000. And after a while, a lot of players stopped playing the endgame. Now it's about 50-50. Some players play d3 and a lot of players play castles. So Aronian decided to go d3 and Kramnik played bishop c5. And one of the ideas of bishop c5 is just to play knight d4 on the next move, which is one reason why bishop takes c6 is played and also why c3 is played. So bishop takes c6, d takes c6. So there are many different plans for white here. One plan, for example, is h3 castle, bishop g5. That's an interesting plan. He opted for castles. So Kramnik played queen e7 to defend the e5 pawn. And I think white's best option is just to simply go knight bd2 and then knight c4, and black can play knight d7, have everything nice and safe. And I think this looks like a reasonable continuation. But white chose h3, and he probably did not expect what came next, the move rook g8, which is a fantastic novelty. I checked the database, and there were no human games with g5, with rook g8 preparing g5. There were 5 correspondence games, and I'm pretty sure Kramnik was aware of them. So after rook g8, it's very difficult to stop g5. If you go knight bd2, there's g5. So white went king h1, and here g5 is stopped because now at g5 there's bishop takes g5. So there's no pin along the g file, so black doesn't have any tricks with bishop takes h3. So here black played knight h5. Some of the grandmasters commenting on the game suggested bishop e6 with the idea of queenside castles. That looks very good as well. Knight h5 was a very good move in a practical game. The moves that were played by Kramnik were all very good in a practical sense. Some of them weren't objectively the strongest, but you could just see how they put so much pressure on Aronian. So Aronian went for c3. Probably better was to play knight c3, g5, knight takes e5, because of the fact that the knight on h5 is undefended. So here g4, d4, bishop d6, g3 would just simply be an improvement over the game. So anyway, c3 was played and black went for g5. White played knight takes e5. It's hard to suggest something better here of d4. Take, bishop b6 looks fantastic for black as well. So knight takes e5, and now black played g4. Very strong move. White's never able to take on g4 because of queen h4 check. So it's very difficult to find a move. He played d4, and black played bishop d6. So black's threat now is to go queen to h4. So white's hand is forced. He has to play g3. He can't allow queen h4. So g3 was played. Here, an interesting option for black, if he wants to keep the queens on the board, is to play bishop e6, and then simply queenside castle. Now he gets to continue his attack without allowing an exchange of queens. But he played takes, and now knight takes g3 check is a very serious threat, completely exposing white's king. So white decided to go for queen d4, hoping to get the queens off. And actually, black could have gone into the endgame and had a pretty big advantage, but it's very easy to understand why he opted for queen e7. So after queen e7, probably the best for white would have just been to play bishop e3, and just to go knight to d2, and he's still actually very solid there, so that probably would have been better than h4. But the main mistake that Aronian made in this whole game was arguably on this move, because had he just played queen to d3, one thing he could have done is after bishop d7, trying to queenside castle, he could go c4, and then he has ideas like knight to c3. So this would have given white much greater opportunities to defend. But after queen c4, this is simply a bad move. And I imagine Aronian was simply flustered here because after queen c4, he allows bishop e6 with tempo, hitting the queen. And after queen b5 check, there's simply c6 again with tempo. So black had to go, after c6, white had to go queen to d3. And then black can play this, and then he has bishop c4. This is very close to losing for white after rook to g6. He can barely move a piece, for example, b3, bishop d3. So in the game, he went queen a4, but the queen is way out of play over here. So black went f5, which is a very strong move, preparing f4. So if queen d1, for instance, we have f4, king h2, rook f8. This is definitely winning for black. So bishop g5 was played, and this led to a quite comical finish. After rook takes g5, h takes g5, f4, it's very hard to imagine how white can possibly defend his king here. He has no pieces around his king, and black's just going to bring his rook in, and that's going to be the end of it. For example, if king g1, he can go queen takes, and simply queenside castle. It's very unlikely that white can defend here. This must be winning for black. So queen d1 was played, and then black just went rook d8, and simply took on g3. And if he takes, black can just take and go knight takes f1. Again, with no defensive pieces near white's king, this will be over very, very quickly. So knight a3 was played, and then black just went rook to d3. And so here, if f takes g3, rook takes g3, we don't even need to look at this. White's king has no pawn cover. There's no way he can shield his king. There's no chance here. So rook d1 was played, and this was a great finish. This was a very nice finish. So now black played the beautiful bishop d5. So he's threatening to just go queen takes e4 check and mate on g2. So f3 was played, trying to shield all this, and now black played the move g takes f3. And the mates that can occur here are really, really nice. So we can play through a couple of these. So for instance, if rook takes d3, we can just go queen takes e4, rook e3, pinning the queen. But now we just have f2 check. Rook takes e4, bishop takes e4 mate. This is a really nice mate. So everything's covered. We just have a beautiful mate with the bishop and two pawns. It's a pretty rare way to checkmate. And so e takes d5 was played in the game, and here Kramnik played queen e2, which was also quite beautiful. After rook e1, g2 check was played, and here Aronian resigned. The mates are really, really nice, so we should play these out. So if king to g1, we can play f2 check, and if king takes, then we just take here and we queen. And if he plays this way, I'll just play, let's say I take here, or I go here, takes, and okay, I can just play this. And after this, I just checkmate like this with queen e takes g2. And if he goes here, what's the easiest way to mate? I can just play this, right? Here I can just play check, king takes, check. And then if here, I can just play check, king g2, and here's a very fun mate. I can just play f1, double check, queen, and mate. So a very beautiful game by Kramnik, and really an excellent example of practical play, practical preparation, but also an example of why people really need to check correspondence databases when they prepare their openings. It looks like Aronian just simply totally missed this continuation, but this is really only one of the very few ways black can win quickly in this opening. So a major misstep for Aronian, but incredibly fortunate for Kramnik. So congratulations to Kramnik, and this is going to be really interesting to see how the remaining rounds go.